Happy
Happy
New
New
Year!
Year. Welcome to 2025, guys.
It's 2025. We're all excited. I am excited to be here.
Oh, very cool.
It's
It was worth
been
the wait.
a wonderful 2024. Thank you to all of
Absolutely.
you who have become a part of our community in 2024. As we move forward into 2025, we hope to bring you more interesting things, great topics, more things to learn, all of that.
Say that.
Our
Say that.
Monday rundown. So, for those of you who are new to the show, my name is Janelle Villiers. That over there is Winston Broderick. We are your hosts on Say That channel. And Wednesdays, we focus more on entrepreneurship and business, but Mondays, we do the Monday rundown where we get to talk about all the other things we don't normally get to talk about on Wednesdays. Lots of like life hacks, things like that. And you guys bring some great topics to us. So please keep sending us topics that you want us to cover because we look to other content creators, other thought leaders to hear what they have to say about the topic as well. So that way we all learn together.
Say that. Let's jump into it, guys.
So, are you secretly scared of being happy? Hmm.
Oof. Oof. Let's go.
Yeah.
Starting the year off with a banger, guys. Let's do it.
Yeah. Right. I think sometimes I do get a little scared of being happy. I think the others, I'm like waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, all right, well, something bad is going to happen. I've been trying to work on that. So I shouldn't say I've been trying to. I have been working on that. I'm more aware of that. So even that question like hits close to home because it's something that I'm aware of that I do at times is wait for the other shoe to drop kind of a feeling. And I have been turning it to just enjoy this moment because it is fleeting. Does last forever. And so it makes all the bad things that have happened, all the like rough, challenging moments. That's why this happy moment is so amazing and to just enjoy it because eventually life is lifing. And so I can count on it, like literally, like taxes and death. Something is going to come up. There's going to be some challenge. So just, it's okay to enjoy this happy moment right now. It's totally okay.
I love that. I'm going to say it's not a secret. Um, and for me, and it's funny because it's toward the end of last year, I found myself coming across a teacher who was he was really going, he was helping coach a young lady who had asked a question. And what he was really focused on was the fact that she was afraid. It was a businesswoman, and she was just talking about the fact that she was afraid of a certain situation in her business which had come up before. And he just asked her the question, why were like, what are you afraid of? And it's so funny, you'll appreciate this, Jay. He eventually got to a point of telling her, and you remember this, the SW, so what? And what it
Uh,
helped me understand, without I guess going too much into details of what the woman discussed, was just this idea of, because I've had some, and I'm going to be mindful, they're not negative experiences, but they were learning experiences of things I didn't prefer. I started to keep I started to be guarded, uh, because I didn't want those things to happen. But what I didn't realize was, with some of those, not great, or not positive experiences, or I also did have great experiences. So I'll use an example of our network marketing business, and there were some things that went on within building that weren't the funnest things to go through. But man, did I have some, in some other experiences, I got to see things in the world that I'd never seen. I got to talk to people I'd never had an opportunity to experience. And so what it in him coaching this woman, it helped me realize that, yes, to get to have new experiences that you are probably going to enjoy, along with that there are going to be growing pains. There are going to be things that aren't the best, like they aren't going to feel the best. But it kind of comes with it, it all goes hand in hand. And it really has me reevaluating what I choose to be afraid of, if that makes sense. Like, what I choose to think, what I choose to shy away from might be, in fact, and we've heard about this. If anyone's ever like read any of the work of Carl Jung and these guys, they talk about shadow work, or dark night of the soul, things like that. And what he encourages us to do is when you find yourself be afraid of something, and I've actually heard this from Tony Robbins as well. Play out your fear to the ultimate. Really sit there and say to yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen if I was to move forward in this way? What's the worst thing that could happen if our channel blows up and we have millions of subscribers? What's the worst? And what I realize is most often it's just the fact that I'm uncertain of what my day-to-day experience is going to be that I'm afraid of. Like I remember again back in our business, I remember the idea of what would mean to be an IMD. And the only thing I couldn't, and IMD was just the top rank in our business. And what I realized thinking back on that period, it was just the fact that I just didn't know what my everyday life was going to be like. I didn't know what meetings I was going to have to be on, but it wasn't, there was nothing really scary about it. At the end of the day, there was really nothing to be afraid of. And I do know the other part of that was the idea of earning a certain amount of money and then losing that money. But if you've ever, I mean, if you've literally watched any of our episodes or seen any of our guests on Wednesday, any great business person, entrepreneur, they've had those periods of life. I mean, literally, if you understand how wealthy people work, they operate in some of what we would consider as average people scary situations. They're in millions of dollars of debt. They are, you know what I mean? Like they have things come up in their life that to the average are scary, but it's what makes them, it's what sets them apart. It's why they have the other side of that, which is the massive success that they have. So yeah.
To get what others don't, you have to do what others won't.
Yeah, and that rings so much truer now, I think, for me than I really understood. We were talking about the whole YouTube thing, and we were following certain YouTube people and why they don't last, and they aren't willing to continue putting out videos that they're afraid nobody's gonna watch.
Right.
Like literally, it's like that's what's probably, I don't know if specific people, but that might be what's holding them back. You're worried about who's gonna watch the video. Don't worry about that part. Just go put the video out.
Right.
That's the part you can control. Is we
Right.
can keep putting out Monday rundowns. We can keep doing our Wednesday shows. Like that's the only parts we can control. We can control how we show up when we do those things, but who watches and all those other things, I don't think that's for us to worry about. And it's actually really nice to take that off your plate and let the universe deal with that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that framing.
But I know it's not just us today. Who do we got?
We've got our favorites. You know we love the School of Life. We're going to turn to the School of Life to help us navigate why this could be happening for some of us.
Take us to school.
For some of us, happiness and excitement never seem to last for very long. Every time we finally take pride in ourselves and develop a confidence about the future, something adverse seems to happen within a relatively short order. It might be something that we find ourselves actively doing that collapses our spirits, or we start to worry acutely about a matter that suddenly enters our minds, or an incident occurs from out of the blue that unsettles us. Maybe we read something online that seems mean-minded and worrying, or we catch sight of ourselves in the mirror and feel repulsed, or we suddenly think of something we said or did 7.5 years ago that may have been misinterpreted and misconstrued and start to panic. Or by some odd impulse that we really don't understand and so can't resist, we do something foolish and contrary to our normal values, which brings on guilt and shame. And as a result, we are brought back down to earth fairly sharply. We end up, only hours or days after the good mood began, in a familiar place of fear, anxiety, and disappointment. It can be as if, without quite realizing it, we are operating under some sort of secret law. Thou shalt never be exuberant. Thou shalt never live life too much to the full. Thou shalt never be too happy. Thou shalt not believe in yourself. Thou shalt worry a lot. Where might such perverse and sad edicts have come from? It may be the result of growing up in an environment where our flourishing was somehow deemed unwelcome and provocative. Had we ever been too conspicuously happy, we might have upset a parent who was battling a sense of despair or resignation and was furious at the deprivations they had once had to endure. We may have grown up to associate a low, fearful mood with safety. Sadness means you don't get attacked. It doesn't provoke envy. It keeps you out of trouble. Whenever happiness does seem on the cards, a part of us will hence be very keen to return us to a lower altitude as soon as possible. To achieve our ends, there may be some favourite websites we like to go to that confirm that we are unattractive or strange or in danger. We may provoke arguments, insults, or offence. We've got a repertoire of secret skills to wipe the smile off our own faces. Were any of this to ring bells, we should ask ourselves, what incentives against happiness and self-satisfaction might there have been in our early lives? Who might we have upset with our joy? Was there a conflict between our flourishing and someone else's sense of well-being? Then we need to reassure the frightened child in us that the person who demanded our sadness as a price for their protection is no longer in authority over us. We don't have to apologize for being attractive or intelligent or gifted or within reach of stability, sanity, potency, and good spirits. We are, whatever we once believed, allowed to live without continuous sadness and fear.
Thank you again, School of Life. So for me, what it brought up again was I feel like I'm hearing this message over and over again that between the ages of 7 and 9, some very critical ways of thinking that continue on into adulthood happen. And so I was listening to this, and when they said, think back to a time in your childhood when you had to, and it reminded me, I'm like, yeah, when I think about that, it has to do with between 7 and 9, I was bullied. And there were girls who told me, oh, you think you're smart? You think you're all that because you're smart? You're not all that. You're not that smart. Oh, you think you're pretty? You're not that pretty. You're not all that. Like they used to say a lot of that to me. And so one of the things I used to do with like, I basically tried not to stand out, because if I stood out, then they would turn their attention to me and would start bullying me. So everything I did was to dim myself, so that way it was protection. The more I did that, the less they picked on me and the less I would hear from them, right? So it was it was poor little Janelle.
Self-preservation, yeah.
Protect myself, right. And I built up this way of being. And I remember when we went to Las Vegas for the network marketing company we were with before, for one of their major events, and I got like really decked out. We got invited onto like a party bus, and
yeah.
I really wanted, and this was only for certain people. Like it was because of an achievement I had just made. I had just hit another rank in the business, and I remember feeling so uncomfortable about getting dressed up, so uncomfortable about like going to I went to Sephora and got my makeup done. Like I went like all glam, and the whole thing made me feel uncomfortable. And I knew people were looking at me, and I felt really uncomfortable. And I remember having a conversation with the girls I was with in the hotel room as we were all getting dressed up, looking like fabulous and all that. And I realized in that moment why I was feeling so uncomfortable. And I talked to them about this experience of like, I needed to protect myself. I needed to not glow up, essentially, right? Like, don't ever glow up. That's the opposite of what you want. And this felt very scary because for so long I'd been trying to make myself look small or not be seen. I was trying to make myself invisible as possible. So yes to the School of Life. And I'm realizing I continue to do that to this day. So even though it was a brief momentary realization in that moment, that evening, it's still something that I do to this day, and probably is in relationship to why I don't want to feel too happy, because God forbid I feel joyful, right? And then, oh no, I stand out and I don't want to stand out, right? So
yeah, what you said is definitely nailed it. I was thinking about when you mentioned 7 and 9, I don't really remember that period. I had just come to this country when I was 7. I could only attest that I do know, or my language was one of the things, just speaking patois compared to proper English. So I do know that those things, I got bullied as well, but I really don't remember too much of how that all played out. But what you just said was accurate. I do think the idea of standing out and being made fun of was something that happened, and the behavior that came from it was certainly one of the things was I was someone that in school in Jamaica, I know we were much further ahead than we were when I came to America, but I didn't let that aspect of myself stand out. And I know I was considered like a problem kid to my teachers, because I know my mom would tell me things like, "Oh, you keep getting in trouble in school," which wasn't how I remember myself in Jamaica. So again, some of that was probably Winston trying to fit in and not trying to shine or not be. Certainly, I remember you weren't smart kids weren't popular kids growing up. I'll say it that way.
Right.
And
Right.
I use popular just meaning, again, jocks. Those are things that were viewed as the way to go and things like that. So yeah, but for me, I think now we do have the opportunity to recreate that belief structure for ourselves and realize that the people who are successful now in the world are people who are themselves. And one of the things that gentleman I was talking about earlier that's coaching, he says the hardest thing for you to do is to be something that you're not. He goes, being yourself is easy. He goes, what's really hard is being someone you're not. And that's where I'm happy my journey is. Like, I'm just being more of what I want, who I want to be, who I get to choose to be at this point. Because that's what you get to do every day. You get to wake up and be whoever you want to be. You don't have to be, you know, that Janelle who used to get picked on. You could get dressed up just because living
True.
it now. We're an adult. Like the video said, that person
Get
or
my hair
whoever
done.
is over you, exactly. They're not there. They're not there, and they probably don't have the level of control you believe they once had. So go.
Right. Yeah, I'm actually friends with one of my bullies on
There you go.
Facebook, and that has been interesting. It's been interesting.
Shout out to you. You helped Janelle become who she needed to be.
All right. Well, this has been a long one, but a good one.
Say that.
If you love today's show, please don't forget to subscribe, like the notification bell. It is free. It is a gift that you can give to us. It doesn't cost you anything, but means the world to us because it tells the algorithm that what we're talking about is important and it's valuable. So please go ahead and do that if you haven't already. And until next week, as always, remember that you deserve the good life. Say that.
Say that. We'll see you guys. Have an amazing 2025.